Hello, Preyasi. Welcome to the Make Life Rich movement. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. So
Guys,
excited.
we're in for a treat today. We are speaking with a real life doctor. We have a real MD here, and not only an MD, we have a woman that has traveled many journeys throughout discovering herself and has landed in a really beautiful place to where she feels ready to kind of share that growth with others in the form of her coaching and just the many ways in which you share all of your knowledge from your medical background, your motherhood, your personal journey through your working out and falling in love with weight training. And I'm just so excited to ask you so many amalgamations of questions. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. Again, thank you so much for having me. I think this is what is beautiful about social media is these connections that we make and having the ability to share our story in a very unfiltered way. So I'm excited to share and learn also.
Yay. So I would love to just start with what growing up was like for you. I know that you have a history of not really loving your body and yourself like so many of us women do it in our youth. So walk us through what it was like growing up as Pracey.
So I am from New York. I was born in Miami, but we moved to New York when I was very young, and we grew up on Eastern Long Island. And to say that I was the diversity in the school, like truly is the case. There was, it was a very homogenous population, and for the large part of my growing up, I just hated being Indian. Like I I felt like I had a split personality. I had one persona at school and one persona at home. And it wasn't really until college that I really started to embrace my Indian culture and my Indian identity and really like leaning into it. And I think it was because I went to college in Brooklyn and we had a, very large Indian population. And I started to realize that there was so much of a collective experience that so many of us immigrant children had gone through that without even speaking a word, we knew exactly what someone's past looked like. But it was, growing up on Long Island was great. I mean, I did have the city at my disposal, but again, it was just, I think people think of New York City in one capacity as like, oh, it is the melting pot. But the further away you go from the urban area, it definitely becomes a little bit less diverse.
Absolutely, 100%. I think, first of all, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. I'm sure that's something that's difficult to say, let alone feel or admit. I am a part of that homogenized group, so I can only sympathize as deeply as I can try to understand. But I would imagine that that would lead you down a journey of trying to micromanage your body and yourself to fit in.
Oh my God, absolutely. And I think, we as women in general, regardless of what your background ethnicity is we're bombarded with images of what we should look like. Yes, for me, there was an added layer of what my skin color should look like. But I think there's a size and shape that we're all sort of told that we need to fit into. And I didn't fit into the typical size and I didn't fit into the typical look. And so I picked apart my body a lot in high school and really college. I think it turned into a look thing, then it turned into a control thing. And I have shared that, I did have an eating disorder when I was in high school and college and even into medical school. But again, I think the underlying body dissatisfaction and even body hate turned into a control thing. And how can I control my environment? If I can't control my environment, I'm going to control what I do to myself. And so, you know, because of that, I feel like I have a lot of newfound respect for what my body can do because I have picked it apart for so long.
That hits me deep. I completely agree. And as you were saying it, it took me first to myself and like what that was like for me during that time frame. And then it made me think of all of the girls that I was in high school with, went to college with, and I think we all kind of teetered back and forth between utilizing exercise for me. I loved food too much to try to restrict it. That was kind of my problem. I got really heavy in college. It was the first time I had been away from home, and at the time my father was at home extremely ill with cancer. And we had no idea what his fate was. So I used food to feel better. I used alcohol to feel better, which put on, I was up to 200 pounds by the time I was a sophomore in college, gained roughly 60 pounds quickly. And then
Yeah.
I utilized running to a very unhealthy extreme to lose that 60 pounds very quickly while being a very strict vegan. And like, it also was the only thing I could control was just seeing those numbers go down no matter what it took.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I wonder if for you, there was a point where it was about trying to look more grown up, be more adult. I wanted to look like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and Jessica Simpson and like all of the girls. Beyonce was so, oh my God, her body was like perfection then. And then you look at your body and you're like, I'm a pudgy child. Like, what is this? Like, I want to look like a lady. And it starts in that moment of like, I'm not enough in a feminine sense. And then I think real world problems, issues, responsibilities start to creep in. And then whether it's food or exercise or body dysmorphia and tearing ourselves apart, it then becomes, I think, the balancing factor of us not totally losing it because it's the only thing we can control in a world where we're growing up.
That is so well said. I think you're right. And I went to medical school, and I think a lot of us would agree in medicine that medicine is definitely a binge culture where you are binge studying. You are like studying hardcore for like 3-4 weeks at a time, and then you have your block party and you binge party. And so I really stepped into that, and I felt like, okay, this I can do. I will like go hard with work, and then I will go hard with partying, and it became my coping mechanism. And I think for a lot of us, it goes into also like binge exercising, right? Like, and in some capacity, we are punishing ourselves for what we're doing, and it's this idea of if I'm going to eat this much, if I'm going to drink this much, I'm going to go ahead and just really work out my body, like work it out in a physical capacity to punish myself for what I've been doing. It wasn't until I sort of forced myself to stop and really evaluate what I was doing. I remember in college, my college roommate knew what was going on, and I give her a lot of credit because it's difficult to approach someone and say to them, like, I know you have a problem, like we got to talk about this. And so it was an uncomfortable conversation, but she stepped in and she said, hey, I know what you're doing. We really need to stop. And I just found ways around it. But it was the first time that I was like, I really got to reevaluate my coping mechanisms.
Bless her for planting the seed. That was really, really special of her. And, at that age, it's like we all have our thing that we're doing. So it's like some friends don't want to point the finger because they're afraid for it to come back to them. And it's like, well, what's your coping mechanism right now? Like, you're not indifferent to this phenomenon. It's just something else for you.
Right.
But how brave of her. And honestly, I think it makes me feel like the work you're doing now is almost an ode to that energy of like, hey, I understand. I can see. I know why you're doing this, but you have choices. There are other things you can do. It just takes one step.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's also acknowledging that these demons or these seeds that have been planted, we can try really hard to excavate them, but they're always like particles are always going to be there. And to acknowledge that, and that's what makes us human, right? Like, I'm not here to say that we're perfect in any capacity when it comes to my diet and my exercise, but it's like, again, like accepting that there are other options, like acknowledging that that's still there, but also as you acknowledge, to sort of replace it with this. These are the things that you can do. To help.
I love you had a reel where you had two reels actually that resonated with me to where I was like, that's so perfectly said. One was you don't have to change everything to change everything. I'm a big proponent, especially in like business. Every Sunday it's strictly a business podcast, and I just try to give someone a plan to move 1% ahead a week. It's always the increments. They are the big moments in life that make the changes that are down the road. But it is in these discipline moments, these conscious, intentional, okay, I'm going to do this. So can you also explain, which piggybacks off of that, the whoop? It's wish, gosh,
It's wish, outcome, obstacle,
plan.
plan. And that's
Love
like,
that.
yeah, because it's a great, like, it gives us intentionality behind our goals, right? So what is our pie in the sky wish? It could be that, I want to lose 60 pounds, or I want to reach 1 million people, right? Like whatever that goal is, dream it, have it. But what is the process that's going to get you there? What are you going to feel when you get there, right? That feeling, the visualization. I'm reading a book right now called Decoding Greatness, and he talks about visualization. Such a good book. And he talks about visualization, but he says that more than visualizing like the success outcome, visualize the process and visualize how you're going to feel. And then it's okay, once you do that, then okay, what are the obstacles? What can I anticipate? I'm not going to have enough time. I have the Super Bowl coming up. Like I have this, this event that I have to worry, like I have to think about. And then it's, now let's plan for that. And this is what I go through with my clients every single week. Because I think that when we have goals, we really need to think about why is that your goal? What do you want to feel when you attain that goal? And also, how can you plan for the roadblocks? Because there are going to be roadblocks. There are going to be obstacles. And sometimes they are limiting beliefs and sometimes they are external. So it's just really figuring out what can you impact.
Yeah, and habits. I think habits was really big for me. So in the process of losing the 60 pounds, it wasn't done properly. I had a real maniacal trainer at Bally Total Fitness that whooped my ass every day, 5 days a week for like an extended period. It got the weight off. I was thankful for it. And then after that, being able to breathe easier, walking up steps better, like all those things were all I needed to know that like I could never go back. But I recently, in the last, we'll say 7 years, developed severe allergies to soy and wheat when digested or applied to the skin. And they are in freaking everything. And I am obsessed with food. So to have to reprogram my brain to not eat these things anymore for the benefit of my health, like my true organs, my body, my meat suit, not just like a weight thing, was where I got to really flex those muscles and understand that yes, this sucks. I want to eat everything and I can't really eat much of what I used to anymore. But in just trying to make it all right, well, today's the day I'm not touching any bread. Okay, I made it through one day with no bread. Giving myself that reward kind of set me up for a standard to where I was chasing the standard every day and not the outcome, because the outcome for me felt so crazy far away, especially, you know, 15 years ago when I was trying to lose that 60 pounds. It felt impossible. I just got up because I had no other plan. I was like,
Yeah.
well, it's this or nothing. Like, I'm only going to keep getting heavier and more unhealthy if I don't do something. So for me, it was just trying to set a standard to where I'm holding myself to that, which
Yes.
then led to self-compassion. It led to me feeling supported when I supported myself rather than it being a fluke. Oh, it
Yes.
was a one-time thing, which then later just turned into a lifestyle, not habits. The habits felt conditional. The lifestyle is just now who I am, which was for me the big light bulb moment. And throughout your content, you present that so beautifully for your own journey and the way that you have come into this life of health and wellness and fitness.
And I think it's the identity shift, right? It's not necessarily, it's a lifestyle for sure, but it's also your identity has changed. How you define yourself is your identity shift. We often in medicine will practice, this is the standard of care. This is the baseline, right? This is the standard of care. We kind of need to establish those standards for ourselves. Like you said, habits feel like they are conditional. Standards feel like it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel overwhelming. It just feels like, yeah, this is my standard. My standard is to wake up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. My standard is to do 80% of the time, 80% of the time. I think it's also allowing yourself to redefine who you want to be. One thing that I will share is that for a large part of my life growing up, I was a younger sibling. I often was told I didn't have a voice, and people weren't necessarily wrong in that, but they would call me my sister's tail. There's a phrase in Gujarati that says, your sister's essentially you're her tail. I was told that I was like submissive. I was told that I was quiet, and for a large part, I just assumed those hats and roles. Right? I was quiet. I didn't speak my mind, and it really wasn't until I went through IVF and I was like, I needed this champion when I was going through it the first time. So again, a little bit of backstory. I had to go through IVF for both of my daughters. And the first time I went through it in 2017, it was like the lowest moment of my life. Like it was so hard. Just not knowing if I could have a kid in the quote unquote, in the way that I had envisioned it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I surrendered to being like, I will be a mom somehow, some way, somehow. My journey might look different, but I will be a mom. But it wasn't until I found, I had a daughter and I was like, I want her to feel strong, that I was like, I'm stripping myself of these labels. I am not quiet. I am outspoken. I do have opinions. I do want to share. I don't want to live in shame. So that was where I was like, I'm going to start sharing about my infertility journey when I went through it again.
I loved so much when you said that your outcome began to change during your infertility journey when you really truly questioned why. Why do I want children? And I wonder, was it a renewed sense of purpose for the newer iteration of you, that higher level self that you were currently living in? Did it feel like you were ready to kind of support your body and truly like revel in it for what it can do, which was create this new life? Do you feel like there was a disconnect between
Yes,
your mind and your
absolutely.
body?
So, I once I moved to Atlanta and I live in Atlanta currently, I changed my environment. I no longer engaged in those binging behaviors that I did when I was in New York. I told myself very conscientiously, we're not bringing this habit, I'll call it a habit here. And all of that spiraled again when when I found out that I needed help to have kids. I was like, why is my body not able to do that it is put on this planet to do? I'm meant to procreate, and I'm Indian. I'm from the most populated country in the world. Like, what is going on?
You're virulent. Your soul
I'm
is virulent.
You would think so, right? And so I was so I was just really upset and I felt very isolated and alone. And then as I was going like injecting myself with these medications and just seeing how my body responded, wasn't perfect. It was, there was reasons why I had infertility, but it wasn't perfect, but it responded. And then the fact that I could carry a child, I felt so grateful for this body that I had. I put it through so much. I think there was this moment where I was like, I've hated on my body so much, but look at it showing up for me. Like, look at it actually showing up for me to help me create and support this life inside of me. And I think that was a narrative that flipped.
Yeah, that's so
And when I
beautiful.
went through it again, because I had to go through it again, I was like, I'm going to be the champion I needed 3 years ago. I'm going to talk about it. And then you start layering like you start peeling back the curtain and peeling back the onions. And you're like, when I would go into my doctor's office, the majority of women there were middle-aged Indian women. But we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You peel back the onions some more. You're like, 1 in 4 female physicians suffers from some form of infertility. 1 in 4. I didn't know about this. 1 in 6 Indian women suffers from infertility. 1 in 6. These are numbers that were so beyond me. And I was like, I'm not even 35. Like, I'm like not advanced gestational age or whatever they call it these days.
Yeah.
So it just felt like if you raise awareness, you can then educate yourself and you can empower yourself and then you can empower others.
It's beautiful too that this directive came from a time where you were like really fully, completely like down to your cellular core aware of life and death. The ability to bring life, like as you said, we've got all the parts, they should work. Why aren't they working? I'm a failure. You already are a high performer, a perfectionist, a high achiever. So immediately you feel betrayed. Like, why isn't this working? It should be working. And then it's just, in hearing your story, it's so apparent that surrender was not only the quotient missing from your body being able to mend back with your heart and your mind, but I think the moment that the universe knew that you'd learned, you checked that box and you were ready for that next level up to be like, okay,
Yes.
I can achieve things. You want me to achieve surrender? Here we go.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm going to help other women surrender as well.
yeah, that's right. It's like, let me
Noted.
watch me. Yeah.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. But I really do think that it comes from a place of acceptance and
Mhm.
accepting that my journey was going to look different. I had told myself, I will be a mom. I will go through adoption. I will go through embryo donation. I will go through anything, but I will be a mom.
Mhm.
And the idea of what will people think, which is so much of what our Indian culture is about, like, what are people going to say? It was almost like I don't give a shit. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. What are
Yeah.
they going to say?
Yeah.
When I started my Instagram page and just started being more vocal about going through IVF with my daughter, Sia, my older one, I remember getting a phone call from my mom, who has been my biggest critic for like the longest, but became my biggest cheerleader when I was going through IVF. And she was like, "You are so strong." She again was like, "Preyasi, why do people need to know about how Sia was born? Like, why do they need to know that? Why are you posting about this? Why are you talking about this? You should take it down." And there was a split second that I was like, what am I doing? And then I remember the number of women that were in my circle that reached out to me saying, thank you so much. And I realized I was creating space for them to share. They didn't need to do it
Mhm.
publicly, but they were at least sharing with someone.
Mhm. You made them feel seen. And I really find beautiful. I've been deep, deep diving into the mother wound for the last 2 years. And when I tell you, holy moly, has this changed my life and freed me in every possible capacity, in addition to my grief work, the thing that I find most beautiful, the stereotypical um, exchange of mother and daughter within the Asian community, I'm
Mhm.
semi aware of with the number of friends that I've had and just seeing them grow and try to evolve into a young woman and then into an adult woman with this very distinct voice. And the voice that you kind of learn within the mother wound, there's varying degrees of abuse and levels of things that happen. But at the core, your mother, no matter how harsh it's delivered, is trying to protect you from the things that were not able to be protected for her within her journey. And it keeps evolving and changing. But what I find so beautiful, and I'm probably going to sob right now, is the fact that your mother changed her tune after hearing your true voice, because I stalked every inch of your Instagram
Yeah.
in a very short period of time. And the thing that rang so true was there was a flick of a switch to where you came into yourself. And in that fully loving and accepting who you are, you threw away any regard for not being your true self and being yourself out loud. Like life is for living and it's meant to be lived in a manner that makes others feel comfortable to do the same. And your particular journey started in the fertility world. And I choose not to have children, but I am aware of that being a privilege. And only in the last 6, 7 years of having friends, I'm 38, I'll be 39 in May. There are a lot of women that I'm friends with that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and it resulted in no child. And it is something that is almost like a shadow of a generation that doesn't get to dictate anymore how we feel about these things, that's still kind of permeating this topic for our generation in a way that seems so misguided and just completely unfortunate. I love so much that you're flipping the narrative on this because, like so many things we've been beguiled into medically and the advice that's given or was given to our generation, like our parents, there's literally, gosh, I'll say, I'm going to throw a number out there and I'm not a doctor. 75% of the things our parents understood to be correct about
Oh,
medicine, the way we're raised, how we eat, how we're supposed to act in public, we're all seeing now tend to be very detrimental to our health, our well being, our mindset, our heart, the way we exist in the world. And that's not their fault, but it is our right to take our autonomy back and to redistribute and re engage and reparent the ways in which we want to move forward. And I love that she so willingly accepted your visible reparenting and then cheered you on for it. Like that right there is fucking crazy and amazing.
and you think about the culture that she came from, right? She now talks about it. She doesn't. she'll share with her friends and family that we went through this, and that, which is for me shocking, because there are so many people that I know that don't, that their parents don't evolve.
Yeah.
But it's been amazing, and I think also having her see me as a mom of two girls, because I have an older sister, so I'm like literally, my sister has two boys, I have two girls, and so I think she sees it. She sees that I am capable, and I do get the choice of raising my girls the way I want to.
Gosh, it's,
Not
I
that she
will,
doesn't have a lot of opinions, because she
yes.
definitely does.
Yes, like don't wear their hair like that, put them in this dress. That's gonna
Yes.
happen no matter what. But
Oh,
she's
like,
like,
put another
they're
jacket on.
yeah, they're my little baby dolls. I'll dress them how I wish. You get out of here. I waited for this. I
Yeah,
wonder.
absolutely.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying absolutely. I mean, they're my little mini me's,
They're so beautiful. They're so precious.
They're
So
so
cute.
spitfires. Spitfires.
Um, I wonder if there was kind of like a moment when you entered into the entrepreneurial side of your efforts. So you're a full-time ER doctor, and then you have your coaching business,
Hmm.
Preyasi MD. I love the name of it.
Thank
I
you.
love that you included that you're a medical doctor because it's really important right now that if you're especially just starting your journey and you're taking care as to what you're doing when you're moving your body and what you're putting in it, please take that advice from a doctor. Let's start right there. You can appreciate all the fitness influencers and holistic peeps on the planet. They are the sauce on your meat, okay? Dr. Precy is the meat. We need to consume the important foundation of information before we divvy off and take the
Absolutely.
trends that we enjoy, okay? So I'm just putting that out
Totally.
there.
I'll caveat this by saying also, like, even there are a lot of physicians out there on social media that will be pushing things, and you just have to remember what is the most basic thing I can do before I start taking this supplement and that supplement, and those all might be well and good, but let's just focus on the basics.
Yep.
Move your body, love your body, truly, like mental love, like mindset, and nourish your body. Those are the
Yep.
three things that you just got to focus on,
Yep.
and then add to it. But focus on those foundations, and then give yourself an action plan. What does move my body mean? Does it mean weightlifting? Does it mean going to Pilates? Does it mean strength training? I have my own preference, and I sort of coach my clients on what I prefer for them to do if they're
Hmm.
going to move. But move. Who cares?
Yeah.
Nourish your body. Does that mean you're vegetarian, you're vegan, you're a carnivore, whatever. Nourish your body in a balanced way, and then love your body. Don't identify those limiting beliefs, identify the negative self-talk, and then let's sort of flip the script.
Hmm. I love that a lot. And I wonder, you know, uh, I think around your 30s, your desires for wanting to take care of yourself move from more an aesthetic vision to one of longevity. I've worked out my whole life on and off, battled with weight, not liking how I look, etc. But over the last 5 months, I've been weightlifting 5 days a week just strictly to start my day off on a good foot. I get up early, I go to the gym, I'm there at 5, I work it out. And I had a really weird freak accident on my ankle about a month ago. I stepped off of my bed. It went inward to where I was like, oh no, I'm going to snap my ankle. I must force it out and just roll the shit out of my ankle and like move on.
Oof.
So I forced a hard roll and literally couldn't stand on it for like a week. But I felt it getting stronger every day. And immediately in my brain, I was like, thank you, me from October that started working out to make these muscles have muscle memory, to start healing and getting back to where they belong quickly. I was weightlifting as of 2 days ago on for legs. So like it was the first time that I was able to see my hard work
Oh my
helping
God,
me
yeah.
heal, making me stronger, giving me a better bedrock to build off of when these tragedies and weird health and like ailments come in. And I wonder if, as a doctor especially, you see the results sometimes of people making it to your place of business because maybe they didn't have that foundation in
Oh,
place. So,
yes.
is there any way that you could just give us? Let's start with just the food that we eat since it literally makes up the cells that constitute our meat
Yes.
sack. Can you just start with what you consider to be a very great place to start focusing on putting more intention and effort into what you're putting in your body?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing is always, what is my intention with the food that I'm eating? Right? Food is life. Food is joy. Food is an experience. That is food, right? And I don't want anyone to ever feel like I can't participate in the pizza. I can't participate in the cheesecake. I can't participate in whatever it is that they want. Food is an experience. So remember, one meal isn't gonna make or break you. One meal isn't gonna make you really healthy, and one meal is not gonna make you unhealthy. Remember, it's accumulation. It's the standard that you're gonna establish. So I would recommend starting from a place of looking at your plate and seeing if it looks balanced. Do you have your fats on there? Do you have your protein on there? And do you have your carbs on there? And really reconfiguring your mind about fats are bad, carbs are bad, protein is king. It's a balance. All of it is like a harmony. It has to be all of it is like, there are different instruments and they make music together. One in isolation is not better or worse than the other. It's just finding the balance, striking that balance. Prioritize protein in your meals, prioritize fiber. So if you are new to the game of fiber, just try to add a new vegetable each week. Look at your plate and see is how many different colors you have. Make it visual and just start from there.
I love that so much. And it's a weird, fun game too that I guess they could integrate in with their children. It's my sister has a 3 or a 2. Well, he'll be 3, and a 1-year-old, and they are just now really starting to get like into trying new things, and it's fascinating to see that the more they try, there's very few things they don't like. And it just seems like an exposure and a repeat exposure thing that
Yes.
then leads them to choose these healthier options down the line because they've always tasted that. It seems like if you don't allow too much artificial taste to enter into their system as they're learning these things and like making those connections
Yes.
happen, it could kind of be a way to hack the matrix a little bit
I know
into
it is, and
it
I
feels
but I
that
will be
way.
honest on my kids. Kids are they were very open to trying things, and then they go through their phases, and they are like, I don't want to eat any of this. But I
Hmm.
think, like you said, the key is to expose them early,
Hmm.
and to again look at food as nourishment. Do my children have lollipops and candy? Absolutely, they're kids. But they also know that, if I eat a lot of candy, my teeth are gonna hurt. I might feel icky. I might be a little like restless. They'll know things like that. I might be crying more. So when we give them food, and I post about this all the time with like what I pack my daughter for lunch.
Hmm.
She has fruits, she has a cookie, she has her protein. We're vegetarian, so she eats her tofu, she'll eat her hummus. So we are just, again, color, they like and get engaged with colors. We find out what they like and we build off of that. And speaking about food in a way that's not restrictive and not desserts bad, but it's more like, how is it going to make me feel, and how is it going to serve my body?
I love that. And if you're addressing it as, well, it's going to serve me joy, well, great, but this is a joy that, we limit to maybe once or twice a week
Exactly,
to
exactly.
feel this, but we can feel that joy in other ways, like going to play outside or, let's sit and
Right.
read a book, or it's fascinating to watch little people that you care about because it really does instantly take you back to yourself in that age and you remember it was locked away for so long and then you see it and you're like, I didn't like carrots either. I remember that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, I would literally do this exact little tantrum thing when I wanted to go open the door, but they would open the door first. Like,
Oh,
there's just,
yes.
you know what I mean? Like, you're reminded so beautifully of the ways in which like, this growth is so not linear. Something that happened to you as an infant that you're then reminded of as a 38-year-old auntie can then
Yes,
unlock that thing that's been holding you back for so long. So it is
absolutely.
I love your approach to really just paying attention to the feelings because for me, feelings always, even if it's a lazy river or like a slow stream, it's going to get you to that point that all of these things along the way we're kind of hinting at. And there's always
Mhm.
that moment of recognition. But your vulnerability in your personal journey of getting used to working out, lifting heavy weights. Like I love the myths that you dispel. Where did you find your current groove of using your body, making it move? Where
Yeah.
did that kind of start? And Do you
So,
remember some of the harder parts of the beginning phase of that?
oh, absolutely. I mean, I did so much of what you had sort of alluded to earlier on, where you are running as punishment or you're working out as punishment. It wasn't until I came to Atlanta for residency that I started going to kickboxing, and kickboxing was very therapeutic. If I had a difficult patient interaction, a difficult interaction with my attending, the punching bag was just like, it was awesome. It was therapeutic. And then I started weightlifting and strength training, and I dabbled in CrossFit a little bit, didn't love it. And then I found my very first personal trainer who I worked with for probably 4 years. And he was a stickler on form, which I am a stickler on form. He didn't want to, he was, let's do things with body weight first. Let's do things with like a pipe, a PVC pipe to make sure your form is good. And he talked about the mechanics and the science behind it, which made sense to me. And so I really think that weightlifting is a way that you can feel really strong and powerful in the gym and also outside the gym. I love yoga. I think for me, movement is meditative. And going into a yoga class also is very meditative. And you take what you learn on the mat, off the mat. Same thing with the strength that you obtain in the gym is not just limited to your muscles and to the groceries that you're going to carry. It's going to be feeling comfortable and strong in a boardroom full of men. It's just about finding that strength. That's why I love working out now. That's why I truly, like you, I start my day off with a lift because it just sets me up for a strong day.
Yeah, it's the mental effect is what I started going for. But I will say, I wonder your thoughts on this. Body awareness was so key for me in just being able to understand what my body was. I think as women and girls growing up, we're made to be small, shrink, 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 shrink. And in doing that, you really like have a numbness to you that you're like, oh, my leg's not where it's supposed to be. I didn't even realize it was anywhere. Like, but
Yeah.
I think the body awareness, I practice jujitsu. It's been 8 years
Mhm.
now. And the first few months, holy moly, I had no idea how disconnected my brain was from where my body was. And I wonder if you see with the women that you coach and work with, if there is a moment where they need to bring those synapses back together so that they can
Absolutely.
understand form, they can understand the purpose of moving their body in this way. Like, oh, if I want to be able to stand up as an elderly person, it'd be great for me to start working on my hips and my lower back. And like, do you see that in your
Absolutely. Oh,
practice?
absolutely. I think women just, once they start developing the muscle. And I think, like you alluded to, it's the muscle memory, that muscle memory connection. The muscle mind connection is what we really need to focus on as women, because for us to even make gains in the gym, you really need to focus on that synapse. And so but it takes time. I remember 2 years ago, I was like, oh my God, I'm finally doing a lateral raise correctly. I finally feel it in the right spot after 10 years, right? But it's just constantly working at it. And you start, it's like the accessory muscle that you're also building. It's not going to be perfect in the beginning, but even an imperfect workout is still better than no workout. You're still working out muscles. And I think for a lot of my community, it is dispelling the myths that lifting weights is going to make you bulky. It's like, girl, if you want to build muscle, it's going to take a lot more than just going to the gym 3 times a week,
It was
There's
really
nothing
only
unintentional about it. There's nothing unintentional about building muscle.
no way. And guys,
Yes.
you're gonna have to take some really specific supplements to get bulky, okay? It's just,
Yes.
it's borderline impossible. We're not meant to be that size. It's very unlikely,
Yeah,
okay?
I mean, you
So
have to
just drop
consume a
that.
lot of calories, right? Like you have to consume
Yeah.
a lot of calories to build that. So I, that's one of the biggest things that I have broken down with my clients and they really understand. And it's also amazing to see when a client of mine could barely lift like 2 pounds in kinetic sand and is now lift like, bicep curling 15 pounds. Like that progress, I mean, those are the wins, right? Yes, the scale number will change and it likely will go down, but in that, the win actually is in the process.
Yeah, that's so cool. What does it
Yeah.
feel like to, man, just like help people on their journey to where you do see these like increments of change and you do see their overall like demeanor increase and like become more bright? Like, what does that feel like to help facilitate their growth?
It's so amazing. So as if you don't know, but I'm an ER doc. So I work in the emergency department. So I'm a strong believer in Western medicine because you need my intervention sometimes. However, I love that I am able to impact people on a long, like over a period of time and really see their growth with the coaching. And I get to say, if you don't want to see me in the ER because of your congestive heart failure or your acute heart attack or your acute MI, then let's start when you are 35 by lifting weights, by improving your metabolism or your metabolic health, by building muscle so that it does burn, so you do metabolize sugar better, so you don't develop insulin resistance. So that is that's the why behind why I'm doing this.
It's beautiful. It's also got to be heart-wrenching to see so many people, especially a generation that just wasn't given the tools. And by the time they might have had access to them, it was already too late. So it truly is not only a blessing, but a real advantageous time for us to be living in to take full control of our health. And
Yes.
I love so much that you explain that it just starts with one step. And I think everyone listening that your first step here after this should be clicking the link in the show notes to visit Preyasi's website, which is stunning, beautiful. We didn't get to talk about your branding, but we'll have you on again in the future to discuss
Yes,
all
for
the
sure.
business side of what you did because you
Oh
put
my God,
together
yes.
such an impressive business. I'm obsessed with it. But I would love two things. I can't have an ER doc on the pod and not ask for all of us presently right now, what can we do to strengthen our lung health so that we don't have a lingering 1 month cough after having
Uh,
the flu?
this is so good. Such a good question. I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna just break down exercise in just two minutes. We think about like strength training, which is great for your muscles and your bones, prevents osteoporosis, broken hips, sarcopenia, muscle loss. Great. When you think about your cardiovascular health, I want you to think about your lungs and your heart. You do your daily walking 10,000 steps for really your heart health. And then I like to conceptualize, you do sprints for your lung health. So doing your zone 2 training and then for your cardiovascular health and your endurance and doing your zone 5 training to really build your lung capacity.
Oh, cool, cool, cool. Okay. We have to have you on in the near future. Let's do it before spring so you can explain zones. Let's get real heavy into the weightlifting because I do really sense there's an uptick in women, even just wanting it for the mental health aspect of things. But it's like a 7-for-1 deal if you just get one workout in a day for like a 30-minute minimal pump. So I would love in the near future to have you on so you can break down the nitty gritty of that. My final question that I ask all of my guests is this: Preyasi, how do you make your life rich?
How do I make my life rich? By being present. By being present.
I love that.
Putting away the phone and just spending time with my girls
So beautiful.
and living my purpose. And my purpose is to build a richer life for them.
I love that.
Everything is an opportunity. And I don't want them to feel like at 40 years old, they can still pivot from a career that took 18 years to get to. They can still do that.
Amen. It's always possible. You're never too late to try anything or do anything.
Yes. Yes.
Tracy, this was delightful. You are so full of knowledge. I thank you so much for your time and your vulnerability. And everyone,
You.
please click the link in the show notes. That you'll also be able to follow her on Instagram. And then go check out this website. It's full of a lot of information. Send her a little email, fill out the contact form, ask your questions. If you've been waiting for the sign of working someone that's focused on health and wellness rather than fitness aesthetics and bikini competitions, Preyasi is your gal. And not only is she your gal, she's your doctor. So no more questions.
Yes. 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 Love it.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so much
so
for
much.
coming on. It's my
Thank
pleasure.
you.